Would you be able to give us a little elevator pitch on what you're actually doing?
So in short, we are a biotech company and we develop a biotech route to make a bio-based building block. And you can use that building block to make bioplastics. And this particular bioplastic is there to replace PET. And PET is the number 3 plastic where they make a lot of clothes of, but also packaging. But we are focusing on the biotech part. So we are converting sugar into this, we call it FDCA, into this intermediate product.
Okay.
And the beauty about the biotech part is that we can really make it pure at low cost. And that's also our claim to fame in this part. Yeah.
And how is it different from PLA?
So the plastic PEF and PLA indeed are quite different. I think PEF is more a rigid material, so you can make more stronger material. And secondly, it has better gas barrier properties. So if you have sparkling water, or if you have beer, or if you have juice, you would not keep that at PLA, maybe for 1 week, but you can store it for 20 weeks or even longer if it's a PEF bottle. And you can also make garment, both without PLA and PEF, but I think there's much more tensile strength in PEF than PLA. But with PLA, you can play with biodegradability. So PEF is not biodegradable at all. It's meant to be recycled. Where PLA, I think there's options you choose, so you can recycle it. But I think the famous example is also the coffee cup of PLA, where you can actually biodegrade it in compostable things. So I think every bioplastic has its own application use.
Sure. So it really is supposed to substitute PET, and in that sense it's, I'm assuming, pretty similar from the chemical building blocks, the properties it has, right, compared to PET?
Exactly.
And what does the bio-based feedstock look like? Where does it come from? What are you using?
Yeah. So in principle, it is sugar, and sugar can be from the sugar beet, so 1G sugar. But you can also use the sugar coming from wheat straw or wood residues, or even recycled cotton, if you can break that down to sugar parts. So the beauty of the process is we don't need pure sugar streams, so 2G sugar could do perfectly there, because the microorganism eats away small impurities, so that gives us more agnostic feedstock capabilities for the process. So as long as it is sugar, we cannot use proteins, or we use proteins to grow the bug, but not to make the product.
Okay. Can you share with us, so I would categorize you as a scale-up. Can you share with us the journey of how you successfully managed to scale your operations?
Yeah. Well, it is a little bit complicated because the history is quite long. It started 15 years ago as a startup there at the University of Delft. That's where we found the process. And it was already scaled up at an industrial company called Corbion. They're making lactic acid, and by the way, also PLA parts. So we successfully scaled it up, but then the important thing was not only to scale up the process itself, but the whole value chain there. You need to develop the application side as well. So the thing was that with the PLA, it was much more closer to the heart of Corbion. So establishing a joint venture with Total Energies to make Total Corbion PLA was a very logical thing for Corbion to do. But it also meant for me that it was not possible to upscale the FDCA part. So that's where our ways separated.
Yeah, really?
Yes. So I went out of Corbion, and that's where actually partners that I worked with in Corbion timeframe, they said, wow, this is really a very nice process. It's really a pity that Corbion had to make that choice. We would like to sponsor you and kind of redo the work that was done. So we already had the network for the application part, but we needed to redo all the technical work. So you have to restart with designing of the microorganism, retesting the process again, and upscaling. So the upscaling process, we were lucky that we had support from Technip Energies. They were in the past already involved with development of PEF. They saw that this 𝗪𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗃 was a wonderful feedstock for them. So they are sponsoring our development, our scale-up development, both in kind with their labs in Lyon and engineering services in Zoetermeer in the Netherlands, as well as cash. And the cash I'm using to upscale for the well-known upscaling organizations in Europe there, like the BBEU and others. So that's what we currently are doing, but then we need to take it one level higher. And that's where we are also in need for a demo facility, because with Technip Energies and Tasseikan, it's the idea that we have a license model to sell the process technology to whoever wants to produce the FDCA part. But then we need a minimum skill to prove it. So our upscaling part would be after this one, would also be a demo facility. Currently, it's a pilot phase, I would say. Yeah.
Yesterday, I don't know if you were able to watch the panel discussions. One of the main topics that the participants mentioned as success factors was partnerships. In particular, partnerships to scale with corporates, right, that have the infrastructure, that have the resources, the experience maybe. And I guess for you, that's a very specific case, actually, since you're coming from Corbion. Was Corbion already with Total at the time, or did this happen afterwards?
No, they were already with...
It was already a joint venture?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was a reason also for them, for a logical step to say, okay, we cannot follow up with the PEF part. The interesting part yesterday with the panel discussion was that Prof. van der Meij of Capricorn mentioned that if you are working together as a small company with a big company, and a big company being an engineering company, that it would be very difficult and impossible to get success. I fully disagree with that. I also told him, because I think it depends a little bit on the relationship and how you would like to deal with each other there. So the important factor is that Technip Energies, they didn't want to control Tasseikan. They didn't want to have a share or an interest. They wanted to have a business relationship via a contract. And I think that allowed us to speed up more, because we, as a small company, you're much more agile to make decisions to move forward. But you at the same time have the privilege that a large company takes care of all the aspects, the regulatory aspect, designing of the plant, the economics, how do you want to scale up the process design itself. So actually the process to come to a commercial plant, that is very valuable as for a startup. But having worked at Corbion, I know both worlds. So I also know the dynamics in decision making. So you have to always make progress to get the attention at the right level. And that's what we are doing. And as a small company, you can do it much better than as a larger company sometimes.
That's a really interesting model. So essentially it's a strategic partnership, but on a contractual basis. You don't have any, let's say, votes, anything where decision-making processes are much longer, different interests.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And when you look back now on the journey of Tasseikan, is there anything you would have done differently?
I had to think long about that question. And my intuitive answer was no, and not because there were not made any mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes, but I think you also have to deal with the situation. Things happen. Things are not always in your control, but it's the way you're dealing with those aspects. I think it's much more important. Also, of the panel discussion of yesterday, I saw that the characteristics mentioned for an entrepreneur, you saw this head picture and all the words no, 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 and inside that head it was depicted yes. And I think that also categorizes the entrepreneur, that sometimes you don't have to do things differently, but you have to deal with the situation to get the next step, to make the next step further. So I put down for me that I said, well, not done differently, but you need to be able to deal with the situation. There was one thing at the very start, 15 years ago, I had my own company, technology company, and we had the luxury that we were generating revenues, and with those revenues, I could always fund the research. So for me, there was no need for external funding, which I thought was normal, and not to be depending on others, but to arrange your own funding. But I think if I at that time also was invested or were attracted other companies to invest in this FDCA technology, things would maybe have a little bit faster, gone faster there. But that's hindsight. So I think the most important thing is deal with the situation, and the capability of an entrepreneur to deal with that. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. Were there any situations where you failed in the Tasseikan journey?
Yeah, that's always decisions sometimes that you say, okay, either on the status or the certain belief, because I think entrepreneurs have sometimes the thing to be very optimistic, also in terms of technology development, and then you're confronted with some mishaps. Those were the things that I said, well, maybe you could have maybe done individual decisions in a different way, but I think it's always the character of the entrepreneur to be a bit more optimistic, and that's also going to drive you further in that sense. Yeah.
So there are a lot of startups that are here today at the event that are also listening, and I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have to them when it comes to scaling their bio-based innovation?
I think ahead. So think ahead in planning. So what happens in case of success? Always plan for success, and then look what could go wrong, and then trying to beat around it. And also surround yourself, and I think I heard that yesterday at the panel discussion as well, involve yourself with brain power, with smart people and knowledgeable people, and also listen to them, because that's also something that entrepreneurs can be stubborn, but I think you should be open to advice from others there as well. But always plan for success and always plan ahead.
Is this your first time at Pitch Perfect?
No, I've been 2 or 3 times before. I think at the first one I even pitched there for a short time. But at the time there was no company, it was only idea there. But I really like it there. It's a very special setting, also very focused on the bio-based part, which I think makes it very unique in Europe, and I would say in the world as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is there something that you're expecting now at the event that you're looking forward to?
I'm looking for a funding round, so of course if somebody would come to me, Mark, where can I sign for this funding round? That would be very nice. But I like the atmosphere, and I always get new ideas, fresh ideas, and there's this optimistic spirit there that already helps.
Do you have a final message to the listeners on how to continue driving the transition towards a bioeconomy?
I would say my general message would be, keep on going. You're working on a good subject there. It takes time. You are allowed to think big, but act small. So if then at the moment the circumstances are a little bit more difficult, so there, still think big, but make small steps. Then you'll get there as well.